Yes, it's not going to work anyway because, as you know more than me, that there's only 20 people who can give an idea that they would like to take through, but he's not in that, so there's not really any time to do it. But the other way, I don't think everybody's going to vote for that. It seems a very old-fashioned thing to do, and I don't think that King Charles will have anything to do with it either. I think he's in a terrible position. But I think, like a lot of parents who have wayward children, that you love the child but you hate what they're doing. And I think because Meghan is so dramatic and unpredictable and he is so crushed, that actually the door is always open for him.
To come back.
To come back.
And that's probably true of the country at large, isn't it? That if he were to come back, it would be like the prodigal son, and that the country would go out to welcome him, as long as he came back in the way the prodigal son did, with humility and asking the nation to take him back into their arms.
I think it would be very hard for him to get the nation to like him. I think because of what he said about his father and the lies he's told, I think he's remembered everything from a small age when William got one more sausage than him, and he's very annoyed about it. But, you know, all those tiny little things that annoyed him have grown enormously over time, and I think he won't be able to change back into the lovely Harry. When I interviewed him for my biography of him, he was charming, he was wonderful with people, and really happy, although he had said he'd like to move on, but he wanted to stay there for the Queen. But I think it would take a long time for us Brits to forgive him how he's been so awful about his parent and his brother and sister-in-law.
But shouldn't those of us, like the two of us, who love the monarchy and everything that it stands for, want to be generous and not vindictive, and therefore we don't actually want to take his title away? We regret that he's behaving like this and that these stories are coming out, but we don't want to add fuel to the fire. We want things to calm down, and that requires a degree of generosity.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right, but I think there's a big difference between an act of generosity and what you feel in your heart when somebody has really hurt someone that you respect and care about and you think work very hard.
Yes, and that must, as you say, be difficult for the King, which is where the Royal Titles Deprivation Act is not the right way to go, because that ultimately would go to the Privy Council, which the King is present at. And I think to ask the King to take away his own son's title would be monstrously unfair. It would be quite a cruel thing to do to the King.
Yes, it would be. But we've also got, as an example of the King's decision-making, is the Councillors of State. Usually there's 4 in order in the hierarchy, and if the King or the Queen is ill or they're away, they can sign documents and stand in their place. But because of what Harry has done, there are 2 more. Princess Anne and Prince Edward came in, so that you only need 4, so that Harry would not be involved anymore. But it's a gentle one. It wasn't cruel.
Well, it
didn't send him back.
It was very important. I was, for a time, president of the council, and was very conscious that we didn't have enough councillors of state who were available, because the Duke of Edinburgh had got too old and had retired. The Duke of York was absent for obvious reasons. The Duke of Sussex was going abroad. And therefore, what were you going to do if the late Queen was incapacitated? And this has made a safety valve for the Constitution to ensure business can always be carried on. Yes,
I mean, but he hasn't wanted to actually... A lot of people wanted to get rid of Harry entirely.
He's left on the list.
But he's left on the list, but won't necessarily be used. But it worries me, actually, because he is, you know, 6th to the throne, but 5th to the throne now, but there's children before him.
Yes.
And King Charles is quite old, and also, if anything, God forbid, happened to William, you know, we've got a terrible problem there.